As I've said in the past, one of the reasons I was asked to start this YouTube channel is because I've got a long, well-documented history of making accurate political predictions. There's nobody anywhere by any source that has a more consistent record of accurate political and social predictions than what I've been able to document. So here we go. A few months ago, when this channel was brand new, I did an episode about World War III, what we had to look at for this summer, the possibilities of World War III, what that would be. I made several predictions within that video. Here we are now, early October, and they're proving true. It's pretty much the way I predicted them. All this tumult that we've got going on in the cities right now, all the trouble with these lefties, we didn't have it then. It was on the horizon because of one reason. America has to be ungovernable under President Trump. That is the entire goal of all of this right now. They're trying to make the Western world, all of Western society, including Australia, Europe, and America, ungovernable. But most of all, they've got to stop Trump, make his policies impossible to implement. They've got to resist everything he's doing because he is taking apart decades of their work. America has got to be ungovernable. Remember that when you watch anything they're doing. That is the first goal. They aren't trying to throw him out of office or, there's been some talk about that. They have the No Kings protest, which is just Democrat activist recruiting missions. But we've got to take a serious look here at what is coming, because this is just getting started, my friends, and it's going to get a lot worse. The truth is, none of us want it. The world sure doesn't need it, but it involves the entire world. So we've got to talk about it. What we're looking at is World War III is going to be a war on three fronts. We're going to have the Civil War in America, the global war with Islam, and the war of nations against nations. Elements of this are already in play. We see what's going on with the Civil War aspect. We don't have a Civil War yet. We've got a lot of trouble from a bunch of the goofballs on the left. They're starting to get violent with the police, and that isn't good, but they're being emboldened because of the fact that the police aren't really clobbering them much yet. Yeah, we've got those people causing trouble, and that's going to get a lot worse. However, we got to look at Islam. That is a separate problem. They're using the demonstrators, the Democrat demonstrators that they've already got, the anti-Trumpsters. They've woven themselves into that with the Free Palestine movement. They were smart enough to co-opt that. Remember that Islamic people do not want the same end goals as the American left. The American left wants socialism. They want America, they want it socialist. The left doesn't want a Sharia law Islamic country. They think they're using the Muslims. The Muslims are using them. They just aren't smart enough to know it. We've already got a lot of Islamic sleeper cells in America. This is no secret. Everybody knows it. The FBI has documented it. We know they're here. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're doing. But they've got weapons cached. We don't know what they have, except for the fact that we know that they've got a substantial footprint here. And then we've got the problem with the wars between the nations. We know that there's an alignment right now. We've got Iran, Russia, North Korea, China. We don't know who all is going to align with them. Belarus is already aligning with Russia. We know there's going to be a mix of that. China has a big international footprint. Trump got him out of the Panama Canal for a good reason. Panama Canal, we finished it because of strategic, naval, and trade importance. We have to be able to move our ships back and forth without having to circumvent the continent of South America. Trump secured that. However, China already has a major footprint in South America with the trade and economic deals they've already made down there. That's why they have the organization BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, and China. India, we don't know where they will fall in a world war, but chances are they're not going to be on the side of China. However, what would a world war be? When you talk about a world war today, People think of Normandy. They think of Germany rolling across the countryside in the tanks. Million soldiers going out and storming cities. That's not what it's going to be today. What we have to worry about today is modern problems, not the problems that they faced 85 years ago in World War II. In a world war today, you're not even going to know who's attacking you a lot of the times. An attack can be something as simple as taking down the internet. Can you imagine what happens to the business community if you succeed in taking down large swaths of the internet? Recently, they busted a site in New York City where they had these banks set up with SIM cards so they could overload the cell phone system in New York City. Don't think that that's the only one. They said that that would completely shut down the phone system. That means no text, no phones, everything. You wouldn't have the internet in your pocket anymore. That's not the only location they've done that at. You know it, and I know it. If they busted one, there's others out there. Satellite communications are a big thing. If they take out a couple of satellites, boom, there goes the internet again. About 10, 12 years ago, they discovered that somebody had hacked in to the geosynchronous satellites in our communication system. They hacked in as far as the steering command section. They had it within their ability to steer those satellites and just shoot them out into space. That would have brought down the system, except they got that far just to see if they could, and they backed off. We could lose our communication systems. That will be a major target. What else will be target? In a world war, the first thing they try to do is cut off supplies to the enemy. 70% of all goods shipped in the world today, all global trade, 70% of it goes through the South China Sea, which China dominates at the moment. China can shut down trades through that. We've already seen what happens with the petroleum industry when they shut down the Persian Gulf. The Houthis did it, sending a few rockets over there. There's a lot of hot spots where they can interfere with our trade. People don't realize how much food we get out of South America. Well, what happens if they decide to stop sending it? Or if it's not safe to ship it through the shipping lanes? These things will all be considered by them, but you got to remember, the foreigners already have operatives. We don't know where all these Chinese people are that got sent here. We know there was too many of them of fighting age. How many bridges could they take out? Our water supplies are not protected. Our grid is not protected. All of these things could damage us severely. Remember, the idea of war isn't to destroy a country. The idea is to subjugate it, to have the people turn it over to you. What would it take to break the spirit of the American people to where they said to a foreign army, okay, come in, all right, we give up. That's it. Just feed us. What about medicines? How many people do you know right now that are dependent or feel like they're dependent on pharmaceuticals? They take a prescription, 10 prescriptions a day. How many people do you know like that? Because the pharmaceutical trade would be cut off. Trump keeps saying we're not making it here. We haven't been. There's very little of it that we make here. And the precursors, the ingredients that go into the pharmaceuticals, those come from overseas. When we can't get our pharmaceuticals today, what happens to the population in America that depends on them or believes they depend on them? A lot of people, no matter what you're taking with drugs, when you do get off of them, there's always a withdrawal period. Imagine life with no prescription drugs available or with a severely limited supply. I was in a city when the internet went down. It's a city of about 50, 60,000 people. It was back in the mountains, Prescott, Arizona. A cable was cut that killed the internet up there to Prescott. It's about 2 hours north of Phoenix. This was a Tuesday. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning. All of the businesses in town had to shut down. The banks closed their doors. The gas stations, the parent corporations, all of that stuff for the gas stations, the convenience stores, that's all linked by computer, right down to the cash registers and the pumps. The pumps are run by computers. They had to shut down the convenience stores, the banks, the grocery stores. everything. Business came to a screeching halt because there was no internet. We don't have backup systems for this. This is what World War III would look like. Imagine if you leave your house, you can't get cash because all the ATMs are down and the banks are closed. What do? Whatever cash you've got with you is what you got. Try to find a store to spend it in because the stores are all closed. What do? What is plan B? America is not built on a plan B. When we had World War II, about 70% of America was still on the farms, rural areas, in an agrarian society. Those people were supplying themselves and helping to feed others. They were raising their own meat. They were raising their own vegetables. People were still canning. They still ate. I had family that did that. There's going to be some subsequent episodes to this because we're going to go through it point by point. We're going to talk about the Civil War and get into the details of it. We're going to talk about the problems with Islam and how Islam will rear its head. And we're going to talk about the wars between the nations and what we can expect. Because we're at a tipping point. The world is a powder keg. All of the Western world is under attack from multiple places. Australia, Europe, and America. We are the power axis of the world, the power and commercial axis. They're trying to turn the tables on that. The capitalism and freedom that these groups of nations represent in the Western world is under attack. That's why they've been infiltrating it with people who don't belong here. Now we're back to the Islamists again. Now we're into the immigrant floods. Why do you think the people behind all of this orchestrated the immigrant floods? Because they know it damages the society. They know that. That's why they did it. It's going to happen. One thing you can count on mankind to do is cause wars. That's been the one constant throughout history. Mankind creates wars. Peace is the illusion. It's temporary. That's the goal, but it doesn't last because of the nature of mankind. Especially when you're the top dog, you got everybody nipping at your heels. Everybody wants to knock you off the stool. And that's where we're at. And they've gone a long way towards setting it all up. We don't know what they've got set up, but we know a lot of it. Like I say, that will be discussed. We've got to discuss all three of these elements because if we get into major rioting here, there's going to be disruptions from overseas. All of a sudden we lose the internet. Try to find even who did it. Try to identify that. What happens when 1 million drones come over off the ocean or they start getting released within our community? How do we know there's not a warehouse in Dayton, Ohio with 1 million Chinese drones already packed in it that could just be turned loose at 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody would see them? And those drones can be programmed to do whatever they want them to do. This is a different kind of war. There's things we've got to think about that we have never had to think about in wartime before. There's an awful lot to consider, so we're going to go piece by piece. But right now, we know if the riots get out of hand, the bad guys in other countries are going to act up. They're going to cause problems. They're going to assist. If the war in Ukraine spreads into other countries of Europe, we're committed through NATO to become involved. When we do that, countries that we're acting against can tell their American sleeper cells, okay, start going out at night. Do this, do that. It's not going to be a widespread event all at once. It's not going to be 10,000, 100,000 soldiers landing on a beach. They're already here. They don't have to infiltrate. They're already here. All they need is the marching orders. Then the group in the corner of Idaho can take off the same ones in the middle of northern Louisiana. They can all act within their areas. We don't know how they've got it split up. Maybe they've all got a 10 or 20 mile radius that they're supposed to operate in. We know that they've gone around taking pictures of the power grid and the water systems, the water tanks. We know they've done this. They've been recorded doing it. We don't know who they're reporting back to, what data they were collecting, but there's no reason for a couple of Arab guys to be walking around the side of a mountain taking pictures of the water tank that supplies the community. Now, that doesn't happen. That's not like people going out bird watching, okay? They got motives for this stuff. and they aren't good motives. So we know that there's going to be things happen. What is going to trigger it? You got to remember, in World War II, you could still hide a ship in the ocean. You could have ships out there. The USS Indianapolis story. Anybody that knows a little bit about history is going to know. That's how they snuck the bomb over. A ship was actually undetected. Hell, people can track that from home now. They got an app for that. They got apps for stuff that we don't even know about yet. You can bet there's some wartime apps that we don't know about that they do. So we got to remember, expect the unexpected. There will be interruptions to the food supply, to the medical supply, and then the next things that you want to interrupt in a war is transportation, communications, and food. I don't care where you have your war or what century it's in. You have to interfere with transportation. You have to interfere with communications. You've got to interfere with food. Those are standards that go back to the beginning of history in wartime. And consider how that could be done today. So much of our food is imported here now. So just remember, there's an awful lot to consider, but we know that all of the forces are lining up at the same time. They work together. They're all using each other. The enemy of their enemy is their friend. We are the enemy that they're all enemies against. We are the one thing they have in common is they all want us brought down. Like I said, when you're the big dog, everybody's nipping at your heels. Europe, they were a huge ally in World War I, World War II. Of course, they're the ones that got us into that mess. That it always starts. World wars have always started in Europe. However, if they get into a war situation now, like say Russia runs out of control, I don't believe they're going to, but say they run out of control and invade France. France will be so busy on the streets with their own psycho lefties like we have in Portland and Chicago and California and New York. They're going to be so involved with their own nutcases that use the opportunity to rise up. Half of their forces are going to have to be to quell the cities, their own people within the cities, while the other half addresses your. Okay, so if half of them are tied up with Russia and half of them are tied up with their own people, who comes to help us? There won't be any. Our guys are already in training. They're getting distributed. Trump is wise to get these guardsmen out, put them into these cities, because they need to learn how it works to be operating on the ground in these cities, because the time is coming and they're going to be needed. Trump and Hegseth realize this. Rubio too. That's what the government is doing. And by God, we need it. Because the war is coming. World War III will be on 3 fronts. Like I said, this is long enough for one episode, but that's plenty of food for thought. Transportation, communication, food supply, medicines. What could be disrupted if we don't have power, if we don't have internet? How long does it take to bring America to its knees when we're like that? How many people can live in a 10 or 30-story apartment building in a big city without electricity? You're going to go up and down all those stairs? How are you going to ventilate a building that's designed with windows that don't even open? How are people going to get to work when the gas pumps don't work? Think about it. I hope you like and subscribe. Like I say, there's going to be 3 more episodes coming in this series because we need to look at each of these one at a time. It will be a war of nations and neighborhoods. It's going to make the other wars look as primitive as they actually were. This is a new age, and there's new weapons, new techniques available. We got to be ready for it, so we're going to discuss all 3 possibilities in depth in coming episodes. I hope you subscribe so you can get them all. If not, please remember to come back. Send your comments because this is a subject I really want input on. A lot of people have thought about this. Send your comments. Maybe there's something else we need to consider or work into our own projections about it. We're all in this together, my friends. And we've got to get it right. And if we do, maybe God will continue to bless this great country of ours. Thanks for listening.